Hello everyone and welcome to Crime of the Time. On this channel we are going to be talking about true crime stories that have happened around the same time I'm posting this video, back in history. If you didn't know, of course you wouldn't know, there is a podcast version of this on Spotify called Crime of the Time, and it's the same thing just without looking at my dumb face. If you don't want to look at the YouTube version, there is a version on Spotify. There's a ton of different stories on there. This is the first time, though, I will be posting on YouTube, so all my other stories are just on Spotify only. There's some really cool ones I talked about. I talked about a murder that happened on Halloween. I talked about the JFK assassination, some really cool stuff, and it's cool because you're watching it and it's kind of like it's their birthday. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of cool. I've never seen anything like that before, so it's kind of interesting to talk about a crime that happened on the anniversary of when it happened. So today is December 13th, and we are going to be talking about a crime that happened on December 14th, 2012. This took place in Newton, Connecticut, in the U.S., and sadly, it's the anniversary of the mass shooting that occurred at Sandy Hook High School in Connecticut. 26 people died and 2 were injured at the school. I'm sure most of you have heard of this story before. I don't know if you're like me, where sadly there's so many terrible shootings like this, you kind of get them mixed up. So it was interesting for me to research this case because I haven't heard about it in a long time, and it's kind of sad how it's like the biggest thing in the world when it happens, and then for the family they still think about it every day, but you kind of just move on and new things happen, and it's sad. But anyway, so the perpetrator today, if you didn't already know, is Adam Lanza. He shot his mother at the house, and then he drove her car after he murdered her and drove down to his old elementary school, Sandy Hook Elementary School, and murdered 20 children and 6 adults, and then killing himself. And this happened to be one of the most deadliest mass shootings and school shootings in U.S. history. So there were so many victims. Why did this happen? How did this happen? I'm going to start out by talking about his mother, Nancy. So Nancy was shot 4 times with a .22 caliber rifle that she purchased. So she was killed with her own gun, which happens far too often. It's really sad. You buy a gun in the hopes of trying to protect yourself, and then it ends up being the thing that kills you. It's really terrifying. But anyway, she also purchased an AR-15, which was a semi-automatic version of a military rifle, and several other firearms that Adam did take to the school and were used in the shooting. So Nancy had 2 sons, Adam and Ryan, and they were a pretty wealthy family. They had some money. They weren't originally from Connecticut. They moved in 1998 from southern New Hampshire. And Nancy was a stockbroker, and her husband Peter was an executive. In 2009, the couple divorced, and Adam was only 9 years old, and he left Nancy alone in the house, and she never had a job again. I guess she lived off child support. Not really sure, but it was mentioned that she never worked again after that. Nancy was described as generous. She did volunteer work. She loved gardening, and recently, towards the end of her life, she developed a fascination or hobby, you might say, with target shooting and guns. Obviously, her intentions were pure. She just liked shooting. It is a sport for many people, hunting, and not even hunting. She wasn't hunting. She was just target practicing. and she sadly introduced it to Adam. She thought that it would, give him some responsibility, because she said that guns require respect, so she thought it might make him a little bit mature. And she did teach both of her sons how to use guns as a way to teach them responsibility. I do want to talk about a few threats that were made. Outside sources did say that she overheard Adam threaten to kill his mother and children at the school. It was also stated that she was scared of him. Other people did know that, and the police were called, but nothing could be done about the threats because guns were legal. She had purchased the guns legally. As sad as it is, there was not much you can do. You can't arrest someone based off of that. He wasn't doing anything. So that's why in these things with these school shootings, it always happens. There's signs and they're posting about it and everyone's like, why aren't the police doing them? We do live in America. You cannot just arrest someone for no reason. There needs to be a crime that was done, and unfortunately, being antisocial and being obsessed with violence is not a crime, and you cannot be arrested for this. So that is why a lot of people think that it falls on the family and the family's responsibility to get them mental help, which Nancy did try to get Adam mental help. I didn't really go into his problems yet, but she did try to take him to multiple therapists, social workers. She was pretty active in that, so it's not like she did nothing. I mean, I don't think she should have showed him how to use a gun, considering everything, but for the mental part, she did really try to help her son, and she was very active and concerned about him. But I think what could have maybe been done is extra security at that school. Like, if there was a threat, like a possible threat to the school, why wouldn't there just be more security, armed security at the school? But Nancy was growing rapidly concerned for Adam. She said that he didn't go anywhere for 3 months, and Nancy was not allowed in his room. He was very adamant about that. She was not allowed in his room. That was his personal space. She was not allowed in it. So now I want to go into a little bit more about Adam, what he was like growing up, all the problems that he had. So he was born April 22nd, 1992 in New Hampshire. He was 20 years old when the shooting occurred and when he died, because he shot himself after the shooting. He was a Taurus. He was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome later on in life after his whole school age problems he had in elementary and middle school. He was eventually diagnosed with Asperger's and he was on the autism spectrum. But Adam never accepted his diagnosis. He never took any of his medication. I don't know if it upset him or he just didn't care, but a lot of people, when they get a diagnosis, they're either really happy about it because, hey, this explains all these problems I'm having, or they're like, I'm not accepting this, this is ridiculous, I don't like this, I don't like being put into a box, and that's kind of where Adam was at. He was very socially isolated. He was described as a recluse who played video games all day long. He had no friends, just one online friend that I'll get into later. He was depressed, isolated, and he had viewed death as an escape from his joyless existence. He was obsessed with war, destruction, and mass murder. Backtracking a little bit to school age, he did, as I mentioned earlier, attend Sandy Hook Elementary School. He was described by his father, he was kind of normal in the elementary school age, and then it kind of just went like that. It just got worse as he got older, which typically is what happens. Stuff comes out, mental issues come out. He was always described as quiet, though, and kind of a loner. In school, there were some kind of weird assignments that he did turn out that kind of made his teachers think, like, hey, this is not normal. There was one thing that came out. Him and his friend made something called Granny. You can look it up. There's pictures of it. It's very disturbing. There's a drawing that he did, and it's just like it was like 50 pages or something. It's very long, and it was just talking about weird shit and like cannibalism, and it was just described as very deranged and gory. Not appropriate for school, very abnormal for a child, and he also was tasked with writing a creative assignment for school, and when you think of creative, most people want to do something they're interested about or something happy, creative. But Adam, in his mind, he wanted to write about war and destruction and gross shit, disturbing shit, gruesome stuff, and the teacher actually brought it to the principal and said, this is not normal, this kid's not normal, and he was in turn asked to write a different assignment, and then he wrote a poem, and apparently it was a very nice poem, and he read it for the whole class, and his family came, and his dad cried. So I don't know how you go from that to a beautiful, heartfelt poem. It is kind of sad because it shows you that maybe he wasn't just always a violent person. Maybe it was just his Asperger's that made him think like that and had these, I don't know. It's just very sad for everyone. It's just very disturbing. But his mom did take him to psychiatrists. She did try to get him help, and she did end up homeschooling him for a little bit. I think it was in middle school she pulled him out, and she did homeschool him, and he did graduate high school. He was supposed to attend college. He never ended up attending college. For obvious reasons, what happened, but he was not said to be ever bullied. It was mostly just social reasons why he dropped out of school and was homeschooled. He had a lot of anxiety, but no bullying. So now let's actually talk about the day of, on December 14th. As I mentioned earlier, he drove in his mother's car that he had just murdered to his old elementary school. He shot his way through a window. It was the security room, the school security room. It was locked. He shot the window. It was 9:30 a.m. And first he confronted the principal and the school psychologist. The principal was Dawn Hotspring, and the school psychologist was Mary Shellick, and he unfortunately shot both of them down very quickly and just kept walking. Of course, they heard the gunshots. Everyone went into a panic. Lockdown procedures began. Children were hiding in the classroom. They were hiding in closets. They were hiding under desks. We had these lockdown drills in school. That's what was going on, but it must have been terrifying for them, for kids that didn't really understand what it was, didn't really understand what was going on, and some kids may have not heard it and just thought it was a regular lockdown drill. It's very sad, it's very disturbing, but they did start that procedure. The first classroom he entered was Lauren Rossier's classroom, and he killed her and her 14 students very quickly, and then he just moved on with just a dead expression to the next classroom. He went into Victoria Soto's classroom, and she actually had all of the children piled into the closet, and she confronted Adam and said that they were in the auditorium. And then he ended up killing her, and I guess the kids got frightened, and some of the kids tried to escape, and unfortunately 6 of her children in the class were shot and killed. and the special education aide Anne Marie Murphy, and the behavioral therapist Rachel DeQuino also died. So he killed, as quickly as I explained that to you, as quickly as it happened in real time, he killed 26 people in 5 minutes. So it was just, I can't even imagine it. It was an assassination. It was mass murder. It was extremely quickly. And then he just walked out of her classroom and shot himself in the head, and then that was it. The first emergency call was made at 9:35 a.m. So since he broke in at 9:30 a.m. and the first call was made at 9:35 a.m., that is when the first call was made, unfortunately. I know everyone was probably scared, and not everyone probably knew what was happening that quickly, but I wish someone was able to make a call sooner. But by that time, he was already dead. The threat was already eliminated. And they arrived to find Adam Lanza's body with a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the head. He used a handgun on himself, and the AR-15 was used on everyone else. He used in total 145 rounds. And yeah, that was that infamous day that I'm sure nobody wants to be reminded of. So many parents lost their child that day. So many children lost their mother that day because adults died too. It's just an insane amount of loss. I don't understand it. I never understand it. I never understood why children, why schools, why anybody, but why children. It doesn't make any sense. And that's what his dad thought. Like I said, he did have a brother and a father, and now his poor brother, his mom is dead and his brother's dead, and his dad lost his ex-wife and his other son. His father, Peter Lanza, said that he was a sweet child and he loved to help needy children. He liked to save up money and buy them, stuff for Christmas. You know how they do that, like presents for needy children and stuff. And he said that as years passed, the mental issues made him become a darker individual and have dark thoughts. And he had these mental issues that he just would not accept. Adam and Peter didn't talk for 2 years before the shooting. They were not close. They kind of had a little bit of a falling out. Just Adam didn't want anything to do with him. But Peter, looking back, wishes he could have tried more, knowing what happened. He wishes he could have been involved more to try and stop it or try to have some kind of effect on the outcome. I'm sure he never thought that this would happen. Plenty of people have Asperger's, plenty of people have autism. Nobody really does this, so I'm sure it's not his fault. He didn't really know what was going on. I don't want to victim blame, but of course, I'm sure everyone would agree with me on this. His mother should not have gave him weapons. She shouldn't have shown him how to shoot when he was clearly exhibiting these strange and unusual obsessions and fascinations with violence. She should not have introduced him to guns. So that was, I think, the biggest mistake here. But in Peter's case, yes, he could have been more involved. Yes, maybe he could have talked her out of it to say, no, do not give my son guns. And maybe this couldn't have happened. So he shares his regrets that he has. But he also said that he wishes his son was never born. And I quote, he said, "You can't get any more evil. How much do I beat myself up about the fact that my son did this? A lot." And he knew that Adam would have killed him too if he had the chance. So he believes if he was there that day, he would have been shot along with his mother. And I don't I'm not sure why he shot his mother either. Apparently, he didn't like her and there was some kind of issues between them, but besides the gun stuff, she seemed like a pretty involved mother, so I don't know why. I don't know where his brother was. I'm assuming he was at school or something. Thank God he wasn't killed in that too, and his destruction, but what do you guys think? Who's at fault here? A lot of people like to blame guns. A lot of people like to blame mental illness. A lot of people like to blame the mom. At the end of the day, it was Adam that did this. Adam was a full-grown adult. Yes, he had mental issues, but that's also where he's at fault. He should have taken his medication. He should have not decided not to do that. If you know something's wrong with you, why wouldn't you take medication? At the end of the day, he was a grown man. He was 20 years old. He has the majority of the fault and the blame here. And I don't understand it. If he wanted to die so bad, he should have just killed himself instead of killing all those innocent children. It makes no sense. It's a terrible tragedy. And it sucks that it happened so close to Christmas. I didn't realize it was so close to Christmas when it happened. Like, just 10 days or 11 days before. It's terrible. And yeah, that is the unfortunate story of Adam Lanza and the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. I hope you learned something today. I hope that, I don't know, I can't say you enjoyed it because there's nothing enjoying, that's not a word. But thank you for watching, and just stay safe out there, have a good rest of your day, and yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.